Let's talk a bit about n8n. So what is n8n? If you've never used it before, you might be wondering why we're so focused on it, what it can do, right? So what is n8n? n8n stands for node-mation. So as you can see, you have an N at the beginning, an N at the end, and 8 letters between them. That's where n8n comes from. That's a bit of trivia for you. It's basically a workflow automation. So what it does is it allows us to create workflows that kind of move data from one place to another and convert it in some way, right? That's the basic fundamental idea. It's a visual editor and builder. So as opposed to writing everything in code, n8n has a UI or user interface that allows us to build everything visually with nodes that kind of move data from one place to another. You will see, of course, how this works. It is a low-code platform, right? So importantly here, it's not no-code. So sometimes we will use code in our workflows, but it's mainly low-code. So that means connecting with various services or moving data from one place to another, converting it in some way. That usually doesn't require any code, okay? And we'll try to focus as much as possible on no code. But of course, at some point, we will have to use some code. But don't worry, I will give you all the code that you need in order to build your workflows. So what can n8n do? Well, it can automate repetitive tasks. So you can think of something like, checking your emails, checking that you've received some important emails, and then replying to it. That can be automated by n8n, or getting data from some document on, let's say, Google Drive, and converting that data, understanding it, processing it in some way. That can be done by n8n. It can also integrate AI very easily. And in fact, most of our workflows that we're going to be building, not all, but most of them, are going to rely on AI to do some processing for us. It can also integrate third-party services, so we can connect with various services online and have them do something for us. So an example here would be creating some images, AI-generated images. That is going to be done by a third-party service, and we're going to retrieve that data in our workflow and process it in some way. It can, of course, integrate databases and file handling, and this is important when we want to store or retrieve data from a database. And also, for example, when we want to create, for example, a chatbot that has custom knowledge of our domain. We want the user to be able to find out information based on that custom knowledge, and we will need a database for that, right? So we can integrate that data in the database and then get it in our workflow. It can integrate custom code. So as I said, it's a low-code platform, but we can still add code whenever we need to. And it can also integrate services that have third-party code. And then it can make decisions based on the workflow that we designed or based on AI. So AI can make decisions for us if we let it. But it can also integrate human decision-making, right? So at any point, we can have a human basically approve or disapprove some path in our workflow, and I will show you multiple ways to do this. But there are, of course, things that n8n can't do. So here I list a few things that it can't. It can't do everything. It has, for example, limited coding integration. So while we can integrate some code into our workflows in n8n, we cannot integrate any type of code at any point. So, for example, I don't know, Python code is more difficult to integrate. It can't build apps for us. So, for example, if we want to build a web app that we want to publish as a service, it can't do that for us. But it can allow us to build a web app based around a workflow that we build in n8n. Workflows are quite limited in scale, although you can see quite large workflows with like dozens of steps, let's say. Those are still, on the grand scheme of things, they are still quite limited. So you can't build, for example, an industrial scale architecture in n8n alone. Of course, you can integrate n8n in that, but you cannot build everything in a single workflow in n8n. And then it has limited error handling. So while we do have some error handling, If something goes wrong, we have logging, we have errors, we have retry paths and things like that. And we'll cover all of those later on in the course. Those are still quite limited compared to, for example, coding, debugging, things like that, right? Unit testing, if you're familiar with programming. You can't really do that in n8n, so there's a bit of a limitation here. But all of these are mitigated by integrating third-party apps and services. So we can call, for example, another app that can, integrate some code for us, or we can design a app around the workflow that we build, and so on, right? So we have mitigation for these things. So here are a few examples that n8n can actually do, and these examples we will actually cover in this course. So for example, it can analyze incoming emails and forward them to an appropriate handler. So it can kind of decide using AI what's in that email, if it's important or not, and where, let's say, which department that email needs to be forwarded to. It can create AI chatbots with custom knowledge. I mentioned this a little while ago, so we can add our custom documentation and things like that, specific to our business, and have the AI chatbot answer questions on that information. It can create chatbots and integrate them in Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, Slack, and many more. And of course, we will cover these extensively. It can do sentiment analysis. So if we feed it a bunch of data and we say, analyze this, what kind of mood there is around, let's say, a certain stock or cryptocurrency or whatever you want, Reddit reviews, things like that. It can provide some sentiment analysis. It can create social media posts and auto-publish. And of course, here, I do recommend you have human oversight, which I will show you again later on how to do, but it can, if you design the workflow that way, it can create the posts and publish automatically, right? So you can automate a lot of things. It can scrape the web for job posts. We will do that in a workflow for, let's say, news article, blog posts, and so on. We will cover this later on in our workflows. It can do crypto or stock analysis and trading. Again, here you need, of course, oversight, especially if it's handling a real-world stock portfolio, but it can do some analysis on that and provide you with more detailed information that you could find out by yourself. It can do marketing orchestrations. So, for example, it can analyze how well a certain post does and make decisions based on that, or make recommendations for improve upon the post that it generates, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things. If you need the PPT with the slides, please comment below. I will share this over to you.